Welcome, everybody, to our March 22nd school board meeting. Can everybody please stand so we can salute the flag? Please salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a full house and a full agenda. Just to remind you, if you're going to be wanting to speak tonight, you need to fill out a speaker slip and hand it to Jolene on any item on the agenda, or there's also comment for items not on the agenda. And President Schaefer is absent tonight, so I will be running the meeting, and Board Member Fabre will be acting as Vice President Clerk. Okay. All right, so our first agenda item is to report out on our closed session. The first one was a liability claim, Government Code Section 54956.95. The board did take action to uphold the denial of the claim, and our vote was four yays, ayes. In open court. Okay, so let's take a vote. All in favor?
Oh, you don't need to move again? Okay. I move that we deny the liability claim as presented.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Our next item was conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Information was exchanged, no action was taken. And also public employee discipline, dismissal, release, Government Code Section 54957. Information exchanged, no action taken. Next is approval of minutes. There are 3 different meetings that we need to approve. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the minutes of regular meeting on March 8th, March 14th, and March 16th, 2016.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't at those
Okay.
2 meetings.
Station, okay. Okay, next is approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Can I get a motion?
I move that we approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, this is a roll call.
Alicia?
Aye.
Jacqueline, and I'm aye. Michelle?
Aye.
And Terry?
Aye.
Great. We have a student representative report, and she is absent tonight, so Jolene is going to read that for us.
All right. Carpinteria Children's Project. Congratulations to Mother and Promontory Hortensia Torres for being selected the Montecito YMCA's Volunteer of the Year. Hortensia's hard work has been very important to their offering of the very popular Water Babies class held at the community pool with the support of Montecito Y and the Carpinteria Parks and Recreation Department. Thank you all. Thank you for Island Brewing Company for sharing the proceeds of the slow bike race held on March 20th with CP. The toddlers love the tricycles you gave them last year. Registration for Safety Town is now open for both counselors in training and children entering kindergarten or first grade in the fall. Registration forms for young children will be sent home with children and are available in the office or Family Resource Center at the Children's Project. CITs can register online at www.sbsafetytown.org and should do so as soon as possible because the spaces fill quickly. At Aliso School, the Aliso students are fully immersed in the arts this month thanks to the Children's Creative Project and a Veneco grant. Aliso's transitional kindergarten and first grade students are dancing with Miss Meredith while their second and fifth grade students are singing with Miss Dawn. The third and fourth grade students will study theater with Mr. Lazier starting in April. Aliso students are enthusiastically participating in these wonderful experiences aligned to the visual and performing arts standards. They are so looking forward to the students' performances at the end of the Artist in Residency program. Aliso science support teacher Mrs. Morvay will begin science movie days for their 4th and 5th grade students during lunch recess to review science content in a fun and engaging way. The 4th grade bike safety presentation by Coalition for Sustainable Transportation will be on Monday, March 21st, and the 4th grade bike rodeo, where students will practice the bike safety skills they learn, will be the following day, Tuesday, March 22nd. Aliso School's climate team is working on refining their school-wide expectations to focus on 3 expectations: be safe, be respectful, and be responsible. This month, the school has focused on their be responsible expectation through learning more about the concepts behind growth mindset, including facts of neuroscience, such as mistakes grow our brain and the power of yet. I haven't learned that yet, but with more practice, I can. Students have watched a series of 5 videos on this topic. Aliso scholars are enjoying learning about these concepts and are reminding each other to try harder, try again, and stick with challenging academic concepts. The videos are accessible through Aliso School's website at aliso.cusd.net. Ms. Manier has been hosting tours for incoming kindergarten and transitional kindergarten families. Please contact the school office if you'd like to arrange a tour. Finally, Aliso's next principal's tea is scheduled for April 13th at 8:15 a.m. During this tea, they will discuss the new Aries online registration system and will have computers set up to allow parents to sign in and practice on the Aries site. Aliso will also showcase the activities and benefits of Parents for Aliso and recommendations of their school climate team. Over at Catalino, at the March 15th ELAC group meeting, the Catalino staff, Melody Aguila and Gabriela Reyes, assisted Mrs. Pursoon in training over 60 parents to sign up for email addresses in advance of online registration kicking off this spring in CUSD. Parents were also led through the process of signing up for a Parent Dreambox account. Catalino will be continuing to offer parent education in technology. On March 18th, Catalino held its annual talent show with performances during the school day and another evening performance for families and friends. On March 25th, Catalino will have a Student of the Month assembly, as well as the ever-popular family picnic lunch. Catalino is immensely proud of the growth of their students according to their March report cards and grateful for the collaboration between the families and staff to ensure the success of each child. Congratulations to the teaching staff and the reading intervention staff for helping students make huge strides in their skills. At Summerlin School, Summerlin is abuzz with spring activities. Pesky leprechauns visited their kindergarten first grade classroom on Wednesday night. Despite the students' creative leprechaun traps, those mischievous creatures caused quite a stir in the classroom, leaving gold behind, trying out the traps, changing name tags, rearranging chairs, and writing on the whiteboard. Summerlin's K-1 students are currently studying the life cycle of painted lady butterflies. Each student has a caterpillar at their desk. Like true scientists, they are recording daily changes in their insects. The 2nd and 3rd grade class is focusing on identifying themes in texts, while the 4th, 5th grade class is studying the Revolutionary War embedded in their informational writing units. Summerlin's next award assembly is on Friday, March 25th. Also on that date is Historical Figure Dress-Up Day. Students are encouraged to dress up as a historical person this day. They are looking forward to seeing their scholars in special attire. Parents for Summerlin is currently in planning mode for their spring social on April 9th from 1 to 3 on the school campus. There will be fun activities for children and adults alike, including a cakewalk, arts and crafts, and a silent auction. Summerlin School hopes you will join them at this special event for their small school. Mr. Lazier has officially begun working with classes on Summerlin School's all-school musical, The Wizard of Oz. Their shows will be on June 3rd and 4th this year. Be sure to mark your calendars for these dates, as it is sure to be another fantastic production with their thespians. Carpinteria Family School. On March 17th, office staff attended a training for online registration. Last weekend, students and parents alike enjoyed participating in the annual Orchard to Ocean Run. After spring break, the 5th grade looks forward to their trip to Lotus Land. Later in the month, the 2nd, 3rd grade, and 4th and 5th grade classrooms will visit the Arlington for their show Alvin. Also in April, prospective parents are invited to another tour of the school. If you were to have gone into Ms. Porter's class last week, you would have seen the first grade mathematicians studying cubic centimeters first in their lessons, but then with their scavenger hunt around the room to measure many objects. It was a testament to the Common Core math. You would have seen Mrs. Silk's classroom eagerly reading and taking their accelerated reading tests as they participated in the earning of 2,000 school points toward a gift for a child in need. If you were in Miss Collins' class at the end of the day on Friday, you would have heard the 4th and 5th grade children outside with Kellen Johnson, the director of The Lion King, practicing their tunes for The Lion King. All are invited to attend the show on April 29th at 6:30 and April 30th at 2 p.m. at the middle school. At the middle school on Saturday, the parent support group had a beautiful morning near the Carpinteria Bluffs, supplying water to the Orchard to Ocean runners. It was a great time cheering on their running club members, staff, and even a board member flying by. This week, the 6th graders are off to Rancho El Chorro Science Camp in San Luis Obispo County for 3 days of outdoor education and fun. Thanks to the leagues of parent volunteers that chaperone the students and make this, thanks to those people for making the trip possible. On Wednesday, the 23rd, they will have their school site council meeting at 4 p.m., followed by their ELAC meeting at 6 p.m. in the library. Rincon Foothill High Schools. It has been a busy season for Rincon and Foothill High Schools, and it has been full of opportunities. Rincon students and staff were on hand this past Saturday at the Orchard to Ocean Run, volunteering at this wonderful community event that benefits all district schools. Last week, students attended an all-day course provided by the Community Action Commission entitled Be Safe, Be Responsible, promoting positive life choices. John Daly brought the key class to Rincon last week, working with students to help them present their best selves in professional and academic settings. In the midst of all of these opportunities, students and staff are still diligently working on their classes as the semester progresses. And finally, Carpinteria High School. There was a parent meeting for the future 9th graders on March 17th, and the turnout was amazing. Not only did a variety of CH's staff speak to the parents, but there were also student speakers that shared their lives at CHS. Yesterday, on March 21st, the CHS bands, jazz, and choir held their annual concert to display their accomplishments and talents for their family, friends, and the community. The senior cabinet will hold a senior class meeting on Thursday, March 24th to talk about senior week activities, senior apparel, and grad night at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And as we all know, spring break is next week, March 28th through the 31st. And that's the students' report.
Thank
you.
Thank you. Lots going on. All right, next we have a presentation from Girls Inc. of Carpinteria, who will present on their Willpower Won't Power. That's held at the middle school. So welcome, Girls Inc.
Welcome, ladies. Thank you for having me. In fact, I think this is the first time I've been in front of the board in my 5 years with the organization. So
Wow.
thank you. I know. I'm kind of surprised. What I'm going to do is just provide just a brief overview and then hand it over to Deborah and Osa, who are our experts in Willpower Won't Power. As you know, at Girls Inc., we inspire all girls to be strong, to be smart, and to be bold, and we do this through life-changing experiences that consist of programs, people, and environments. And we do this because we want kids in our community, girls and boys, to be healthy, to be educated, and to be independent. And part of this experience is introducing healthy sexuality to them. And this is where preventing adolescent pregnancy and Willpower Won't Power come into play, and our partnership with the school district. We've worked with the district since the 1990s, and it was within a bigger collaboration. I believe there were a total of 5 organizations in the county working to decrease teen pregnancy in Carpinteria. Soon after that, we started our partnership with the Carpinteria Unified School District, teaching Willpower Won't Power to middle school students. Currently on staff, we have 3 people that are trained. They usually are staff members that are working with our teens. They take part in national training, a total of 4 to 5 days, 21 to 28 hours. They're trained by licensed Girls Inc. national staff and professional consultants from across the country. Our staff members then come back and cross-train our staff members here to assist in the classroom in the spring. In the fall of every year, we actually work with Mrs. Castagna to put forward the dates to teach the programs at Carpentry Middle School, and we set an orientation as well. The school district sends out, or the principal sends out a flyer, notifies the parents, and we have a trained staff member go out, provide an orientation in English and Spanish for parents. Children obviously can opt out of the program. Families, it's not a requirement, and in the past we have had some. I'm going to turn this over to Deborah so that she can speak to you about the curriculum that is actually implemented, and if you have any questions, we'll be here to answer them.
I'm Deborah Elizalde, and I'm the Juvenile Justice and Outreach Director for Girls Incorporated in Carpinteria. And I'm also a national trainer in preventing adolescent pregnancy with Girls International, as well as a violence prevention specialist. So primarily what we've been doing since the exception has pretty much been combining Growing Together, which is a puberty class, with our Willpower Won't Power program, which is designed for the middle school age group. And the reason that we originally did that was because we were asked by the school board if we could incorporate some of the puberty components, because some of the children they noticed entering 6th grade still didn't have a grasp of the anatomy and physiology that they learned in 5th grade. They kind of forgot it over the summer. So it was a nice way to refresh their memories and then kind of introduce them to a little bit more sophisticated background in what they were going to be learning. So pretty much the curriculum covers assertiveness techniques on how to say no, not just to sexuality, but also other things that happen. We have found on a national level, studies have proven that that's a critical time when girls and boys are introduced to drugs and alcohol. So we really teach them, part of the component is teaching them goals. What are your goals? Because it has been proven if they have goals, they know where they're going, they're less likely to participate in sexual activities. So we are an abstinent-based program, but it's abstinence plus, because we are giving them some other tools to navigate. And how do you navigate and do refusal? And that's really important at that age, especially 6th grade and 7th grade. Especially coming from elementary school into, you know, a larger campus and seeing older youth there that are 8th graders are a little more sophisticated. It's nice to have that in their tool belt and be able to say no and go home. And one of the biggest things that we promote is that the parents are the educators of our children, and that's really important. And that was one of the reasons I love this curriculum. I hadn't seen many when I first started this 16 years ago that was the first thing on the list, and I think that's very important. So when a child asks us something that is out of the norm, we will refer them back to the parents. So did you want to add a little bit about that? Because you just finished a group, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So Osa's also one of our trainers.
Yes, my name is Osa Olsen, and actually Deborah has trained me, to tell you. So I've been doing it for probably 8-9 years now. I wanted to say that every year the children are different. The groups that I meet are different. I deliver 10 sessions for each, for boys and girls, every other day. So they are on the same page on everything that we do. We do ask them not to share anything outside the classroom except what I deliver to them, but anything else that they talk about is anonymous and stays in the classroom. We also have a question box, which is a very, very good tool for the kids, where they can ask any questions they want, and I will read them, and will read them back to them exactly the way they're written, and sometimes they shock themselves. But then I answer, give them an answer, and if I don't have an answer, we will promise them to come back the next time and have an answer for them. It's a very exciting program. In the beginning, all the kids are laughing and giggling quite a bit, and that's okay. And we really teach them that everything that they are asking about is about themselves, and what they are asking are things that are normal. And it feels very good to be able to tell them, it's normal. Your feelings and thoughts are fine. It's how you act upon them that makes a difference. Having sexual feelings, having romantic feelings, they're fine. It's normal. But make sure you have a little someone on your shoulder that says, wait a minute, stop, what did we learn in class? And we do preach or teach abstinence. That's one of the words that I always ask them to define every class till they get it, and they do. Another thing, what were you going to say?
I was going to also mention that our curriculum is evidence-based, so it's real important. We do pre and post testing. I just recently did some with high school kids in Ventura County, and it's very telling to see also how much the media affects the youth today, and with some of the questions and comments. So it's wonderful that that's another component to our sexuality department, because we do talk about that, how the effects of media affects girls and women and boys, because expectations have evolved through the years, and it's great for them to be able to assess that and see how is that affecting them and what are their values, because one of the activities we do are what are your values. And it's important, and we also have to respect everybody in the room as well. So it teaches them about being respectful. You don't have to agree with everyone, but I think that's important. So I really love that it is evidence-based. Stats was always one of my favorite classes. And one of the things I think that to share with you is in the next couple of years, Girls Inc. is going to be upgrading the curriculum to kind of really keep up with some of the media influences, because it is taking effect on our youth, unfortunately. So
I want to add one thing too about the question box. In the beginning, we are bombarded with questions, bombarded. But I must say, towards the end of maybe the 7th or 8th session, there are not that many questions. And at that point, I can hand it back to them and say, okay, here's the question, what's the answer? And then they answer the questions for each other. And that's what we want. We want them to have the knowledge, to be safe, to be healthy, and to be able to support each other. That's a whole big chapter also. Sisterhood, buddyhood, to actually support each other in all instances. I don't know if we have time, but I just want to read some of the information that we get from the kids. These are more like testimonials that we do the last day. And one girl just wrote simply, I asked them to tell them how this program has affected them, if any, and if so, tell it like it is. Don't say things that you think I might want to hear. Say it like you feel. And one girl wrote just abstinence, big and clear. One girl wrote, yes, I've learned a lot of things, and before I came here, I've learned not to be pressured by any or anyone. I am very thankful for having this class because I learned a lot of things. Another girl says, I learned a lot from this class. It was less awkward than talking to my parents. I was nervous to talk to my parents about sex, but this class really helped. And unexpectedly, it was fun. Thank you. And the boys had similar things. The classes taught me to stand up for my rights and say yes or no when it is the right time to have sexual intercourse. This class taught us things about our body, feelings, and how to say no, and how to be bold and smart about things. And one guy just wrote, it has helped me be more assertive. And one wrote of abstinence again. And one guy just wrote, a young kid, he wrote, I don't know why we're having this class, because I know all this already. So it's a lot of different avenues for the kids, and they have different backgrounds, and the girls are definitely more or less absorbing it easier because they develop earlier in life, whereas the boys, they are very, very squirrely to start with, but after a while they narrow it down to pertinent questions to them, yeah. Anything
stop
else?
showing off. That's about it. I don't know if you have any questions. Or
Go ahead.
Thank you for that presentation. I think anybody that knows me knows that I'm a big supporter of Girls Inc. I appreciate what you just presented. What I'm interested in knowing is what information do parents receive about the content of what their children are going to be learning, and what opt-out options do they have?
So, yeah, the school district actually has a form that they use for the opt-out that has been created by your office. As far as the content, we always have a parent night, And the parents can come, and then we usually have a PowerPoint, and we kind of go over the curriculum so that parents can ask questions, and that helps them decide whether they think their sixth grader is ready for it or not.
Is it pretty clear from the PowerPoint, how in-depth you're going to be going with each? I'm thinking that some parents might want to opt out of just certain sections even. Is that an option?
Actually, it is an option, and the PowerPoints there's actually an outline with detail per class session.
Okay.
So parents can literally follow along with, like, this is what they'll be learning today.
And it's pretty detailed.
It's very detailed.
Okay.
And we've also had the option of, we usually take the curriculum so that parents can look through it if they like, so they can kind of see how it's taught.
Okay.
So that's always available. And we've
Great.
Well, this year
Had
I
that
had
before.
2 parents approach wanting to learn more, and I met with them separate, face to face, and sat down, and we went through the curriculum, and then they were fine. So,
Good. Okay.
and it's turned out to be a good thing.
Thank you.
And so that's always available to them.
Nope, you asked my question.
Okay.
Alicia? Okay, well, I just echo what Terry says. I mean, we're so lucky to have Girls Inc. in this community. And I think we have more than 50% of our student population girls. And so what you're bringing really affects our whole town. And, we're really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's see. Item number 3 is a memorandum of understanding between Imperial County of Education and Carpinteria Unified School District regarding the implementation of the Broadband Infrastructure Improvement Grant 2.0, known as BIIG 2.0 program. So we're being asked to approve this MOU.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And we welcome back for the 3rd time the discussion on dual language immersion program plan, Maestro plan. So,
Certainly. Happy to be here
Let me get your PowerPoint.
with my colleague, Principal Jimmy Pursuit.
Oh, my goodness. Just a moment. Sorry.
Thank you. Very good. We're here this evening again to present regarding the dual language immersion program, and we're going to briefly review some overarching themes that we've been hearing. Then we're going to go right into the pink dots, or the unanswered questions, or those things that sort of were out there the last time that maybe needed more attention. We will be also reviewing current numbers of enrollment, and then as well all the opportunities that we could consider. And finally, my recommendation, ideally a discussion with you, and hopeful that we have action to move forward in some capacity. And thank you for this extended conversation. It's been very tremendous for professional development, building purposes, and I actually am very appreciative of all of the comments from the community. And in fact, I've received quite a bit of correspondence and emails and telephone calls, and limited correspondence addressing the negatives or the cons. Now, that does not mean that other folks don't feel that way. It just means that there hasn't been the same balance or amount. And actually, I'd like to thank all of everyone for helping me to be a better superintendent, because thanks to all of their comments, pros and cons, they've prepared us better to be able to come to this stage with you tonight. So we thank everyone. Certainly, you have in front of you just another example of bilingualism, in fact trilingualism, and something that I'm very proud of. I feel that had I not had the access to learning a first language, my native language or my world language, before learning English as a second language, I think it really would have changed the way that I view the world, and affected me in terms of my relationships and my experiences and my access to other opportunities that perhaps I may not have had. And certainly, bilingual was one of the features that, in fact, you were looking for when you sought your superintendent. having said that, again, there is clear and compelling research, and I just wanted to provide additional research. Anyone who would like this list with the URLs, I'm happy to email that to you. More clear and compelling research from a variety of different places. So we certainly have, again, a tremendous wealth of experience out there. Many districts in the state of California and in the United States have begun the dual language pathway, and they've done it successfully. And I've actually trolled online a little bit to become better informed. I feel like there are a lot of folks out there that did the heavy labor and the heavy lifting already, and we can certainly benefit from their experiences. Y ahora por último. So here we are finally with the pink dots, if you will, for those of us who looked at the presentations and the charts. And we're going to address this one by one here today. To the best of the ability, this is where we ended up, and then I've added a few more comments at the end there, which I'll be speaking to. Well, as it turns out, I'm sorry, I am vertically challenged, so I will do my very best. So we need to turn on the technology.
Now,
I grew instantly. Well, as it turns out, we actually have existing. We actually face this in our existing structure in the Carpinteria Unified School District. In fact, we have classes at the high school that, by virtue of their subject matter or the group of students that attend those classes, be it for intervention or perhaps for an AP course, we already have a contrast. And I'd like to ask you to look at the handout, and I've color-coded it so you can see where we have the highs in certain subjects and the lows in other subjects. And even within one subject, we may have classes that are filled with many students and other classes that have approximately half the number of students. So I'll just wait a little bit for this to go around here for the public. Can I? Yeah. Thank you. We may need to share. Thank you. For example, in biology honors, at current date, we have 31 students enrolled. And then in the modern world section, we have 24 students comparing to another section of modern world with 39. So that is the same theme of what we've been talking about here, is that, in fact, if we started with 24, which was the local number that we chose, and again, we own that, as the students progress into the 4th and 5th grade, their peers will be in the class with more students. That's currently happening at the high school. Another example with English 11, 14 students in one section and 35 in another, and so on and so forth. As you'll see with English 12, expository reading and writing, ERWC, 17 students in one section and 36 in two other. That's twice as many. So fortunately or unfortunately, we already have an existing situation like that in our district. What about the teacher? Are we going to have the qualified teacher? Where are we going to get the materials from? I will say again that the teacher is the program. We have all of our instructors and faculty in Carpinteria Unified School District are capable, competent, talented, giving, well-educated, prepared, and ready to teach every day for the students' learning. In this particular program or class, we are ideally going to hire from within. Our goal would be that our own teachers would have interest and apply. Certainly, we don't know for sure because we did not want to overstep our boundaries as staff. And so without your direction, we have not posted any positions. And so anything we know is a speculation or is just something that perhaps we
glean, but we don't know for sure. And so if we were to post the position in-house and follow the bilateral agreement, as we would with any position, we would then have a better idea who and how many would be interested in the position. We talked about the fiscal impact, and as a result of the last study session last week where we looked at the restricted and unrestricted funds, we were able to tease out, and it looks like we would have a contribution from the unrestricted fund of approximately $2,000 to support the dual language immersion program. The rest could come out of the restricted funding. We do have some unintended consequences with respect to the traditional classes. Again, I think that's mirrored in the high school courses or even in the middle school. I only chose the high school. I could have taken any number of the schools and compared. I didn't want to keep you here very long tonight. I think it serves its purpose and shows that it is an existing challenge that we have. The enrollment and staffing at Aliso or Canalino certainly will be affected, but we're ready to address that challenge with our talent, with our principals, with our human resources office, with our director, and also with our partners in a cause and in the union. We would expect assistance and support, as we have been working all year, to work together collaboratively to mutually solve issues and to benefit from their wisdom and their support in these conversations. Now, interventions, I think that one is very poignant. And I really thought about that, Jamie, and I thought, well, we already have classes that are English only, and we have students that are non-English speakers or limited English proficient English learners that are going to an English language intervention. And so we currently have essentially that challenge. Of course, there the goal is to learn English. I think that parents who were informed up front in making their decision that this would be an area where if their student needed an intervention, that they would need to sign on and understand that the intervention may not be offered in the new language. It would be offered in English. So for some of the students, that would mean that would be okay, but there would be some students that would still need the intervention, and perhaps they would learn their fundamentals or their courses, their subject matter in English, even if they were learning Spanish. They would still have access to the content. The challenge for them would then just to be to transfer the vocabulary into Spanish. But it's what we've done over years of bilingual education, where the premise was we teach the child the content in Spanish, and then we introduce English as the mechanics, if you will, of the language. So I think we can work around that, but more importantly, I think that's a private decision that a family would make, understanding that if you're in this program, and we should be able to identify on another form or some commitment statement, these are the pros and cons as we've identified them. The professionals have identified these, and then allow the parent to still then continue to select. And I think that would be a fair compromise, and allowing the parent to then make that choice, understanding that it could be a pro and a con, in fact. And as far as the Plan Maestro master plan goes, that is our document. Our team wrote it. We own it. We wrote it. And so we can rewrite it anytime we want. We're not doing that right now because we still feel like we're not sure about where we're going. And so we also would need some direction from you so that we can move in the right direction and then adjust as necessary. Anything about those comments, Principal Person, that you'd like to speak to?
Yes, these are ongoing conversations, not only with the staff in the district, but with the parents. And like Micheline, I've received many email communications from a lot of stakeholders, and many of whom who are not yet in our district. So that's exciting to me that we have a lot of people that are engaged in the conversation before their children even arrive in TK or K. So I'm really appreciative about that. With enrollment, we're going to be talking about that in a couple slides. And interventions, that you know me, and that's my thing. And so I'm not worried about solving that problem. We work on that all the time, think out of the box and figure out how best to meet the needs of all of our kids. And we're very specific in addressing each child for what they need individually. So we have a fantastic staff of interventions, actually due to your generosity in allocating those to the sites for helping students learning to read.
And the best intervention is the intervention that happens in the classroom with the classroom teacher who knows the children best. And so we would still provide interventions in that language. And also, I wouldn't expect our teacher of the dual language immersion program or pathway to not offer after school tutoring when we already do that anyway. And so there would be a level of intervention there. Perhaps it's not a 2-hour pullout. However, again, if it were that extreme, I think the conversation between the teacher and the parent with the principal to bring that early on to the attention of the parent, and then the parent can continue, or the staff would give a recommendation, and perhaps that child needs to return to the traditional class at that point. Again, that's that conversation that happens organically when we're facing that matter. We're not ill-equipped or ill-prepared at this time to address it. It's just that we feel that it would be a case-by-case situation, kid by kid. And then finally, as your superintendent, it would be my expectation and recommendation that the team come back next year and report on the program. We would assess with formative assessments and formalized assessments, as well as surveys from our parents, and ask them to provide feedback. And there would be a formal report to the board to give you an idea of how we're moving through during the year and then at the end of the year. A snapshot, un vistazo. These are our numbers as they bear out at the moment. I would not rely too heavily on these numbers because I do believe that parents are waiting also. And perhaps then when and if action is taken, we might see an adjustment. Right now, to date, we have 34 requests for kindergarten from Canalino, 9 from Aliso, 1 from Summerlin, and then 10 entering the first grade from Canalino.
Can I edit that?
Certainly.
It's actually 25 entering the first grade, so I got the folder this afternoon.
Perfect.
25 entering Canalino.
25 invitations to apply for entering first grade students.
Good. I'm going to move into the slide of all of the opportunities. It was like a math problem. Have you ever looked at, how many addition sentences can you write to make 20? That's what this was like. So with that, before we move on, do you have any questions so far, trustees?
Yes. Where's that? I turn on the device here. So back to, let's see here, which one? First of all, I think this is a great program. I don't know, many of you know that my mom taught in ESL in its inception and taught a lot of the Danes to speak English when they came over here to Carpinteria to grow into the community that they are now. And my mom, also taught Spanish, so I do know learning Spanish at another level. She taught in the high school for years. I mean, we can become bilingual and biliterate, but I do understand the importance of this program starting in K and first grade. With that said, here are my concerns. So back to having, where you talked about, Ms. Miglis, prepare for the challenge and mutually solve issues. I understand that we have about 11 teachers who are, quote, qualified to teach in this program. I'm just wondering, when you think ahead, are those teachers right now currently teaching K and 1? And will those teachers then move to teach second and third, or will there be other teachers who aren't teaching second and third be forced to teach second and third when they're normally teaching fourth and fifth, or vice versa?
That's an excellent question. Certainly, there could be a teacher at fourth grade with a BCLAD who would like to be involved in this program, again, through the application process. And, of course, that would then create the vacancy there. Certainly, there could be a bumping effect. I think that it's difficult to paint every scenario. Once we were to move forward, if we were to move forward, we would definitely manage that in a very structured way. Again, working with our bargaining partners as necessary, and Darlene's expertise with the principals as well. Yes, there could be a vacancy caused in the upper grade, and there would need to be we'd have to fill that position, or perhaps someone else would want to move. In fact, we have some middle school teachers with multiple subjects. They may like that, so there could be that effect.
So in doing so, would say you don't have the qualified person, or they don't volunteer, would this be a volunteer, or would you have to eventually assign somebody? Say this class, the DLI program gets up to second and third, or third and fourth, and there isn't someone to teach the fourth graders. but there's an opening for a teacher, yet will you assign somebody, one of those 11 qualified people, and then it won't be a voluntary?
We would not assign because that would violate the bilateral agreement language with respect to vacancies. So first, after we post it in-house according to the language, then we would post it publicly, and we would not likely involuntarily transfer somebody. That is something that we reserve in very unique situations. Again, because the teacher is the program, we would want somebody who was really committed to this, because it will require a different behavior. It will require a different work, if you will, a different style. So it would not be my recommendation to move someone and place someone in there. We would, again, work through the contract, post the position in the district, wait, go outside of the district, and conduct the hiring process.
Right. So also my concerns would be, I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I did due diligence and do my homework. I saw Mr. Cornejo had a comment on how we would accommodate that once it gets to the high school in later years. But I'm still concerned with the buy-in at the middle school level. And I know that Mr. Principal Merritt hasn't commented on that yet, so that still remains one of my main concerns, the total buy-in to the total program. The other thing is I do read my emails. Thank you, everybody, for sending me my emails. I'm just not quick on answering them. But one of them brought up a comment that I wanted to ask about the plan. Is it not currently translated into Spanish so that the native speakers, the ones that we are trying to accommodate in half of these classes, that it's not available to them yet?
Not yet. The power of yet. Okay. But yes, good point, trustee, not yet.
Okay, and then my other, sorry, I've been taking notes. My other one is, how does GATE play into all this? I know when my kid was at Aliso School and he was pulled out for GATE sessions, so how will that be incorporated into the DLI program?
Certainly. Great.
Hi.
Hi.
So GATE qualification happens in second grade, so we wouldn't be doing GATE instruction until third, fourth, and fifth. At that point, the percentage of English instruction is much greater than it is in the lower grades.
Okay.
So my anticipation would be the GATE pull-out sessions would maintain their normal configuration. So students would receive their GATE lessons from the GATE specialist that come in monthly in English.
Okay, great. And then I know that most of you who've put this together have had different school site, evaluations and field trips. We were just talking about it. I actually was just thinking about why not give us the opportunity as a board to go in and see some of these different programs that you rave about that we're patterning ourselves after, and maybe have that opportunity and maybe kind of decrease some of our questions that we have and see how it's run, to its inception, to its completion. And I think that would be a good idea. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Thank you for requesting it. We will work on that right away.
And then let's see here. What was my other thing? I think that's it for right now because I can't even read my own writing. Okay.
I have a follow-up question or comment to Alicia's regarding the transfers of staff or involuntary transfers. I don't see how you could post to go outside the district without somebody else losing their job. I mean, there's X number of FTEs, so it's not like there's a position open. There's just a place open. So can you talk to me about that? It seems to me that it would be possible there would be requirement for involuntary transfer.
Well, thankfully, we have a great director of human resources who can think on the spot and has all the numbers ready to go. That's the power of Team One. So, Darlene, if you don't mind commenting, I may have missed a finer detail there, certainly.
So please excuse my voice.
I'm so sorry to make you talk.
That's okay. With the transfers, we would post it as normal. And then if somebody's displaced, as the presentation shows, they would be offered the positions that are available. So they would have to make a choice, whether second grade, third grade, or if it's a different grade level. You make a good point in not posting outside, because then we would have a displaced teacher we would have to place them regardless. It may not be a choice that they would like to have. It would be maybe a new grade level that they would be teaching, but we wouldn't displace them and then hire a new teacher. That would be a violation.
Right. So of the 11 that we have right now, how many have they been talked to? How many of them are actually excited and would like to teach in this program?
Well, formally, we have not gone out across the district.
Okay.
However, principals may be discussing those questions and having those conversations, and so Principal Jamie will speak to that locally.
Yes, so formally, we have not had those discussions or made those decisions or offers because the program is in your hands at the moment. But yes, I have a very good sense of the interest level from the teaching perspective. And I am not at all worried about at least the first 3 years of implementation because I feel we have the staff in-house to do that. But I do think that we need to be mindful as a district as people retire or positions come up that we are keeping in mind our need for bilingual educators, not only for dual language immersion, but also because we are teaching a majority Spanish-speaking children. So it's best practice anyway.
Okay, so per the contract then, if this is approved and these positions open up, then it has to be opened up to
Correct.
all staff who are eligible in the district. What's your sense for how any staff at your school are going to feel if an Aliso or a Summerlin teacher comes in to teach and they have to move?
I think that the way that we see it is this is about the children and the students and, growing their academic capacity and their language. It's about our community, and we remove ourselves from the whole process. And I think all of the teachers that have been working on this project have a much bigger passion for it than what they want to do, or if it's about them. They have a bigger vision. So I don't know that their personal choice about where they teach or what room they're in or what grade or who their partner is, those things are definitely to the side. This is about the children.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I had a question while we're on a roll. I think you're right that there's going to be more parent interest in this because on our desk here we have another letter, maybe they're speaking during public comment, of another 43 families that are on this list. My question is, the model is 8 monolingual English, 8 monolingual Spanish, and 8 bilingual, right? So out of this interest, how many families fall in which categories? Do you have that?
So we would need to do a formalized assessment process, and that's not a wheel we need to invent. The districts that already have this program in place have multiple tools for assessing that. If you would be considered a monolingual Spanish, monolingual English is fairly easy to determine. It's whether or not you would be considered bilingual or monolingual Spanish that becomes the gray area. So I think we would need to determine that, use that tool. I wouldn't want to speak in terms of numbers if I haven't delivered that particular assessment.
Okay.
And without the formal assessment, I phoned a friend, Brittany, and she said that at the moment of those numbers that we have in front of us, and this is only based on parent reporting, 4 are bilingual and the others divide up almost equally to the Spanish-speaking, monolingual Spanish and monolingual English. So that is, again, parent reporting, not a formal assessment.
Okay, great. I think you can continue.
Great. The math. Okay. We could pursue another of opportunities, a number of options. Originally, we were presented with 2 kindergarten and 2 first grade at Canalino. And through the conversations, we've had a number of comments, and as you said, there's been communication from our stakeholders. So the team and I came up with this list. And you're all very literate, so I'm not going to read it to you, but you can see there are any number of combinations. The 2 kindergarten and 2 first grade at Canalino, or those assignments at Aliso, or 1 kindergarten at Canalino, period, full stop, punto final, or 1 kindergarten at Aliso, and so on and so forth. 1 kindergarten, 1 first grade at Canalino, and 1 kindergarten at Aliso. So, in my humble opinion, as your superintendent who narrowed this down and thought about what was available to me as of Sunday, and thought about it some more, and made some changes today, Jolene, frantically at the last minute. I had a brainstorm. This is how I think beginning and launching the program would work well here. I would recommend considering 2 kindergarten classes at Canalino, or 1K at Canalino and 1K at Aliso, or 1 kindergarten, 1 first grade at Canalino, and 1 kinder at Aliso. I'm just briefly going to comment again. There are pros and cons. So when it comes to the kids, it would be great and best for them to stay at their home school. The next important factor for me as a superintendent, as the learning leader, is for the teachers to be near each other, to be able to interact and share. However, we do that across the district with our grade level chairs. And it isn't that one is more important than the other. Those of us who work with me through least restrictive environment conversations know that I always prefer the child to remain at his or her own school, and whenever possible, that we as a system offer the classes there. And so that is why, for me, I would prefer a model where the students get to stay at their own school with their friends and their families close by, and the parents of that community working in those schools close to their home, ideally first, and then I would look at a model where the teachers were next to each other. And having said that, 1K and 1K seems like a gentle place to land. We started. Certainly that doesn't reflect the numbers that we just looked at. Again, this isn't a perfect science. If we looked at the numbers and we responded simply to the numbers and looked at these 3 options, for example, then we would know that we have sufficiently students for 2 kindergarten classes at Canalino, and we still have some from Aliso and Summerlin. While the numbers are not that high right now, that could change, and we may have sufficient to offer a kindergarten class at Aliso if we're looking at the raw numbers. And now we just had an update on the first grade, and certainly there's, at this point in time, sufficient for 2 first grade as the numbers bear out. But narrowing it down, this is where I would point you if you wanted to start slow to go fast, or of course to implement the original model in the plan that you received, which was the 2 kindergarten and the 2 first grade.
Is this listed in your order of preference?
No.
2 at K.
It is not in order of preference.
Can you share with me your order, your
Certainly.
preference?
My preference would be for the children to remain at their home schools, so whether that be whichever, 1K at Canalino and 1 first grade at Canalino, 1K at Aliso, I would like for the students in their home schools, or at least close to. With Summerlin, we have 1 request, going to Aliso, ideally for children to stay with their peers in their home school. Then to look at starting perhaps at Canalino with the intention of moving that program in the 17-18 school year back home, if you will. This is just for 16-17.
I have a question for Cindy. During our budget study session, I said that right, last week, when we were coming up with the budget 2,000 out of unrestricted and the rest out of restricted, was that including the original model, the 2K and 2 first? Do you remember?
Well, remember that the impact on the unrestricted budget is about $2,000.
Right.
So
whether we do 1K and 1 first at each school, it still would be covered under our restricted.
Most of it would be in the restricted side for staff development. And the classroom resources, I think, I was looking at if we were doing the implementation with 2 Ks and 2 first grades, it would be somewhere around $2,000. And then every year, because you'd be adding classes, you might be spending another $2,000. That's what I'm remembering is in the spreadsheet.
All right. So we already factored it in.
And then if I will just ask that you note that the last option there on the PowerPoint, 1K and 1 first grade at Canalino, provides for those youngsters to stay at their home school, and 1K at Aliso provides for those youngsters to stay at their school and then to build the program out in the subsequent years.
Just a question on these options. If any of them do start at Aliso, I'm just wondering, what is Ms. Manier's buy-in?
I'm certain that she would welcome the opportunity to provide that option for her students as well.
Has she said so, or just?
She has committed to me that she's on board with supporting the program.
Great.
Do we have public comment, Jolene, on this? Oh, so I thought.
We have a number of public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Do we need to make a motion before we hear it, or we can hear it? Okay.
Actually, you should, yeah, this is a good order.
Okay. Good.
All right, and what I'll do is, I have a voice this time. I'm going to say a few names so you can prepare for you being in line next time to speak. The first speaker is Casey Balch, followed by Matt Oliver and Maureen Claffey.
How many do we have?
We have a total of 9.
Before we start, can I ask Darlene something? While can you do some calculation as to all these 3 options? What will the staffing looks like 5 years out when it's fully implemented, and how many teachers we need, how many will be retired, how many we have to hire? Just a snapshot. Thank you.
Yes.
When would you like that?
After, if possible.
Tonight?
Yeah, just a little snapshot, nothing written in stone. If you could
Okay.
just give me. Ready?
Yeah. Hello again. Thank you for allowing us to speak. I sent you an email. Hopefully you guys had a chance to read it. I listed kind of my bigger concerns there. I think you guys have probably heard me talk enough on the subject. My biggest concern still remains and revolves around the kids that don't opt into this program, whether it's 2 classes of 24 or 1 class of 24. The class sizes are going to be different in the remaining classes. Like I said before, class size is important. You guys hear that all the time. If it's important enough for this program, it should be important enough for all our kids. Another thing that concerns me is the staffing. The staffing is a big question, and it's still an open-ended question. The district has put out applications to apply to parents to make these decisions, but hasn't asked the same of their staff that could be potentially teaching this in a few short months. The timeline to implementation is still pretty rapid. If it gets approved tonight, they would have 24 days to turn in their application by the 15th of April, which is when it's requested. Another big concern that was mentioned is this plan that's targeting, in theory, 66% of people that have at least one Spanish-speaking parent at home is written in English. This is a program that's bilingual and biliterate. That seems like it would be an important step to have this available to, at the very least, the majority of people that we're trying to target with this plan. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Matt Oliver. I think that mostly everybody I know here could pretty much agree that I'm the last person you'd see here. So moving forward, I'm for this program. This could be underwater basket weaving. It could be whatever it is. But I think that there's some logistical and support issues that need to be answered before we put our kids in this program. And here you go. Here's all the tools to succeed. But we forgot about support down the line, or even frontline support extra. How's this going to be if I put my kid in the lottery, which, that's up to debate. Lottery is lottery, but 20% of the kids, those spots, as written in the plan, can be from admin staff, or could be from district staff. So that could be a part-time teacher, right? That's not really defined. What part of the class size is going to come, that 20% account for? So for me, entering the lottery, I don't win the lottery, And now I have like these class size concerns, like, okay, now great, all right, well, was this 28, 32? Am I even going to even go into this district if I'm going to just be inundated with this class sizes? Because, the foundation of the education is really important. So that's my concern as a parent. I agree with the bilingual and, getting through life, and that's just where we're at. We need to move forward, but I want to move forward in the right steps. So pretty awesome little outline here. Let's see here. Let's see what the easy ones are here. Interventions, I think as the master plan is written, there's no real outlined support until like grade 3 or 4, from what I understand. I kind of have concerns about that because, we're always giving our kids support, and I'd like to see a little more in that. Let's see here. And this 2016, 2017, you're preferential to keep your kids at their home school. I think that's great, but what's the best for all the kids? How is the 2K at Catalino going to affect the kids at Catalino, or how the class sizes and whatnot? So that's, 1K at first, Catalino, Aliso. How does that impact the whole entire district and staffing, and how are we going to support that? I think that's important. And as Casey, Mr. Balch had pointed out, 66% of the class is going to be, Spanish speaking, and we don't have a master plan in Spanish. So I think that's kind of we need to get that done. It's hard enough for me getting up to speed with this program, speaking English, and 24 days, all these applications, and watching all the YouTube videos, and asking questions right here, last second, 24 days, whatever it is, seems kind of, now we have to bring them up to speed. So I don't know. Let's see here. I think that's kind of it. So anyways, in closing, I'm for it. I think that there are some questions. We're answering them right now, a lot of them that are pretty important that maybe we shouldn't be answering in I feel like it's the last minute. So I don't know if I want to take that risk with my child, getting these questions right here a couple weeks before we enroll. So that's just my concern. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maureen Claffey. I've written a letter to the editor that was published a few weeks in the Coastal View, and also I sent that letter to all of you, so I won't go over that. And it sounds like I wasn't able to attend that planning session, the fiscal planning, but it sounds like the money is no longer an issue, so hooray. That's one hurdle down. I just wanted to come in person today to show my support for the program, and I just quickly came up with kind of 5 points that I wanted to emphasize today. In addition, I don't know if anyone heard the NPR story this last week about some of the social and emotional impacts that dual immersion has on you. So I'll quote from that. I just, get really excited with all the stuff. The first point I want to make has to do with educational equity and just the social justice component. I think that this program addresses the needs of our students and realistically reflects our population. I think it was Jamie that said that we have a majority Spanish-speaking population. This program doesn't just address the need, it addresses the needs of the whole community, because kids who aren't speaking Spanish are going to need it, and kids that already speak it need to learn how to write it and spell it. So this program addresses that holistic community need of we already are bicultural, we just don't have the educational component to support our children. Second, going back to those, the improved social skills and cultural understanding, I have the article too if anyone wants to look at it, but it was in NPR the other day, and it's just, the headline was, "Studies suggest multilingual exposure boosts children's communication skills." And the bottom line is, does exposure to more than one language make a child a better communicator? Well, a pair of studies out of Chicago says it does. And it was a fascinating study. It was actually a psychological experiment, and it showed that children who were learning or had exposure to a multilingual atmosphere actually, it was like improved empathy or point of view. And the researcher says, I think this continued practice in the linguistic, I think of this as the continued practice in taking the linguistic perspective of others. And so I think from that, children are able to perspective take better, if that makes any sense. So I think that's a really interesting point that maybe hasn't been emphasized. The third point I want to make is just the name of our school district is already bilingual, Carpinteria Unified School District. Carpinteria is a Spanish word meaning a carpenter shop. So we're already there. We don't have the educational component to support what our community needs. Fourth point I want to make is this program has generated genuine excitement in the community around an academic program. I was a pretty big geek growing up. I went through all the Carpinteria schools. I was not a participant really in sports. So for me, I didn't have my academic needs met at Carpinteria, and I ended up taking classes at City College when I was a high school student, because I didn't feel supported that way. And so I hope that this can bring, hope for all the geeks out there and aspiring geeks. The last point I want to make is that my daughter is 4, and if I'm willing to offer up my daughter to this new and exciting program, the least you can do is get out of my way and her way and support her. And that's all. I mean, that's such a huge sacrifice and commitment that I'm making that we just need the community support to make this go. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next 3 speakers are Megan Olson, Maria Lemus, Dawn Unduraga.
Hello. My son is in TK at Aliso, and I'm really excited about the dual immersion program. Hoping that it can be implemented in the fall. I think kindergarten would be a great starting point, and just really look forward to this program and it building our community. So that's it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maria Lemus, and I currently have my son in kindergarten with Miss White. And it's kind of sad for me to even say, me as being a Hispanic, everybody in the house speaks Spanish, but my son won't speak it. And he understands everything we say, but he speaks back in English. And I think this program will really, really benefit him, even writing and speaking it. And even today, I had a job interview. First question they ask, are you bilingual? So we know that speaking Spanish or any language is pretty a plus here. So I'm pretty sure most of you guys hear Spanish everywhere. Run across somebody that doesn't speak English and you try to communicate with them, it's hard. So I think this will really benefit them, especially for kindergartens and first graders that are learning and they're sponges and they absorb everything. So I'm for this program and I hope you guys vote yes. Thank you.
Dawn Ugaraga. Okay, thank you. Oh, very quickly.
Please be safe. Hi, I'm Dawn Unduraga, and I am not as well prepared as everyone who has spoken before, but this is Linus, and he wanted to say a couple words. He was very excited to speak in front of the microphone, right?
Okay. Hi, Linus.
Okay. So now here's our opportunity to speak, sweetie. Okay. So, my ex-husband is from Chile, and we're trying to raise a bilingual child, and I'm a native English speaker, and I try hablar en español con él, pero I, don't always do as good as I should, perhaps. And I'm just really excited about the program as an opportunity for him to learn and expand his brain, and I just think it's a great opportunity for connection, too. So, did you want to say? Yeah, Linus habla un poco español.
Ah, muy bien.
Y quiere hablar más. Sí. Okay. All right. Well, he's not going to be able to do it in front of the microphone, but we almost got there. But thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
That's very cute. The next three speakers are Adriana Zazueta, Sarah Killen, and Leanne Patterson.
Hi, I'm Adriana Zazueta, and I have a incoming first grader next year, and I would just love for this program to be implemented in for the first grade and kindergarten option at Canalino. She's kind of getting the Spanish part on my mom's side, but I don't really speak it to her at home just because it's just not. But we speak English a lot at home, but when I'm at my mom's house, we speak Spanish a lot, and I would just love for the school to be able to offer her that. And also my kindergartner is coming. I have a boy. He's going into kindergarten, so I would like for them to learn this together versus her not have it and him have it. So that's a big thing for me. And what else? Yeah, it would just be so nice to have my daughter be able to write her grandmother in Spanish. And yeah, those are tools I missed out on growing up, not being able to write it. And I can read it, but writing it is terrible. So I'd love for my kids to have that opportunity. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Sarah Killen, and I just came here as a representative of so many families that I know that are excited about this potential program. It is extremely exciting. I grew up here in Carpinteria. I've always wanted to be able to speak Spanish. It wasn't really an opportunity to learn it until I was in high school, and for so many factors, that was far too late. I took my Spanish classes, and I can get a few sentences out, but by no means am I fluent. And this really is about community. This will bring our community together so much. As it's been said so many times, when you go around and you see people speaking Spanish and there's a barrier, we cannot communicate, we cannot come together as our community because we don't have that language ability. And so even in my family, I have family members that are Spanish speakers and their family members that only speak Spanish. And it can get quite awkward when you can't go the distance in a conversation. And it's just sad. You miss out on so much. And then it's also been highlighted, and I think the job opportunities. I mean, this is very necessary for the upcoming, generation to be able to be bilingual and to get a decent job, because I can't think of a sector out there that being bilingual is not hugely beneficial. I have a son going into kindergarten next year, and I urge you to get this program going. We don't know until it gets tried out. And so, I just wanted to let you know there are so many of us out here in this community of Carpinteria looking forward to this. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you again for your work from the bottom of our hearts. This is like a probability problem that Micheline put together. You could do lots of different combinations. So as you consider the combinations, I want to remind you that we've had some pending board approval interest meetings yesterday and then a week before. And it was so exciting because we used the simultaneous translation devices that the PETA group shared. So it was just a lovely demonstration of a truly a community event. And the slides were in English and in Spanish. So the interest meetings were a lovely invitation, a bilingual invitation for families. I also wanted to bring up that the resources are here. We have Montalvo in Ventura, which is right down the street. We have Adelante, which is literally a 12-minute drive. And these people are doing this well, and they've been at it for a while. So as we're concerned about what if, we have people to rebound those what if questions. As I've mulled around, and I'm representing a lot of kindergarten families because I have a kindergarten son, and you've heard me speak, but there is a lot of interest from the parents for Canalino, the Coppola families that are already in-house as kindergarten going into first. You have a letter before you that a lot of kindergarten parents put together with lots of interested families. So just want to bring that before you. This letter represents families from all over the district as a unified force and to try to bring this program not only to our kindergartners but also our first graders. So I'd really like you to consider that option. So thank you.
There are no other speakers.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. So we are. Oh, okay, yeah. I was trying to decide if we want to discuss or have a motion, but go ahead, Darlene.
So to respond to your question, Trustee Fabre, for the first option, 2Ks at Catalino, going 3 years out to 18-19, we would need 6 B-clad teachers. For option 2, with 1K at Catalino and 1K at Aliso, we would need the 6 B-clad. For option 3, the 1K and 1 first at Catalino and 1K at Aliso, we would need 7 B-clads. And that's through 18-19 school year, 3 years out.
And we currently have
We currently have 11.
11.
So, 7.
And may I just comment that we also want to keep in mind that there's always natural attrition as well. So we haven't accounted for that. And so I understand and respect the comment from Trustee Jacobson that then, correct, what happens? I mean, people don't want to do it, and where do we put them? We just don't. There's always natural attrition as well. And so again, always identifying and evaluating every natural attrition opportunity, keeping this in mind as well.
And I think that goes the other way too. I mean, what if there's a teacher who's wanted to be in and then decides, I don't want to be in anymore? So then that would cause another kind of shift, right?
Yes.
One thing I didn't hear about in the presentation tonight was the creation of combination classes. It is probably part of the unintended consequences, but we were going to talk a little bit about how that would impact Aliso and or Catalino.
Certainly, there is that option, I think, and thank you for pointing that out. That is also one of the top 3 concerns I have of the concerns. We would be able to bring back what that looks like based on better numbers if that's your direction tonight. If you request additional information, I think we should speak with as close as possible to those numbers versus speculate right now, but that could be very well an unintended consequence.
That is definitely information I feel I need to make a decision. I will, can I make some comments right now? Also, just this may fall in there in some way, but the boundary issue and whether or not we need to readdress that would fall into that as well. You know, our boundary lines for our schools and whether we would need to adjust them in any way to try to balance out our schools a little more and our class sizes. I am going to say that, first of all, I really like this program. I really do believe it is something that would be really good for our community. I am a little concerned about some of the logistics that we haven't really ironed out yet. And I'm very concerned about class sizes, as Mr. Balch brought up. And, we can't do that for all the kids in our district. And yet that doesn't feel fair to me. I feel, without trying to be rude, I am a little concerned about creating a program that is for a few elite, or at least it is perceived that way, and something that we will never be able to offer to all of our students because we'll never be able to create the balance that we need in the classrooms. At least that's what I believe. So I have some concerns about that. It wouldn't stop me from implementing it if I can get some of these other questions answered. But something that has crossed my mind quite a bit regarding the class size is I do feel like we might have to compromise on that a little bit. And you know, currently we have class size reduction in K3, so those are our smaller classes. And then as they get up to 4 or 5, then the classes get larger. So in my mind, perhaps the give and take there is that the classes are a little larger at K3, or, you know, as it moves up. And then they're going to be probably smaller than other 4 or 5 classes because I think there's going to be attrition. So my concern, I guess, kind of long-winded, is that we start at 24, and as these kids move through K5, I think we're going to lose some. And so now we're going to have classes at maybe 3, 4, and 5 of maybe 20 kids, you know, and I just don't feel like that's equitable. So I'm not quite sure that that's a good solution that I have mentioned, but it's just something that's been kind of rolling around in my head as I've struggled with how to make it feel more equitable for as it compares to other students in our district. And I'm just going to say I appreciate your analogy with the class sizes at our high school, but I'm not going to buy into that because that happens as a result of master scheduling, which is what is required to make all students be able to fit all classes, you know, into their schedule at a high school level. And very rarely, if ever, does one student get to the benefit of a small class size all 4 years of their high school. It just is, they might one semester end up with a small class size, and the next time they might be in that large class. So to me, that's just, that isn't quite the same analogy.
Yeah, I just had 2 closing comments. I appreciate everyone's enthusiasm on this program. What bothers me, and I think Mr. Balchik kind of alluded to that, is that we were very quick as a district to offer out an invitation to apply, yet we haven't, as you both said, realized the invitation within the teachers and who wants to participate. And that really bothers me because we want to support the teachers. You know, we want to make sure they are feeling supported by us, the trustees, by the community, yet they're the last ones to be asked this question, do you want to, you know, be present in our program? And I think we talk about that all the time in supporting our teachers and them being first. And that really is where we should have probably started, is what is the teacher's buy-in, who wants to do this program? And I know that you talked about Ms. Miglis not having all the answers on all the scenarios, but you know what, you do. You have all the scenarios. So why can we not make that available to us as trustees so that we can kind of get a grasp as to all the scenarios that we might be dealing with and have a program that succeeds, and rather not have one that fails halfway through. And that's my concern.
I think, like so many of you sitting there, I so want this program for our district. And I know it looks like we're standing in your way. You want us to get out of your way so your child can go to school. But if we do that, we would not be representing, we would not be doing our job. We want to have this program. We want to have it done right and well. So we keep asking questions because that's what we're here to do. We want to make sure that this is going to be a great program. Many of you have invested so much, and I know it's personal, right? I know it's personal. I know your heart sinks when we start asking questions, but for us, we have to make sure that we cross our T's and dot our I's and make sure that we have a fantastic program, because we're going to have this program. It's going to be a great program. Okay.
So I would like to just say again how much we really appreciate all of the community input, because you know, you put us in these seats and so you're trusting that we are going to listen to you as a community, and it is clear that there is a strong support for this program. I want to talk a little bit also about a couple of things, one that Matt brought up and the other also that Maureen brought up. Maureen brought up about educational equity, and we are firm believers in that, absolutely. But it is difficult to do with a lottery. Like, how do we ensure equity when it's kind of the luck of the draw? And that speaks to kind of Terry's concern on it becoming this elite program. The other thing is, when I was an employee of Carpinteria Unified School District and also as the board, I mean, class size reduction in the early grades has been a number one priority budgetarily, because we know that class sizes that are small, children are going to learn. And the larger they get, the less that they're able to get that individualized attention. So that is one of the barriers that is keeping us from moving forward, because we so want that for all of our early elementary students. And finally, I think it's a good idea to have that pros and cons list, because for those of you who don't know, my day job is in education also for another school district. And I think that the point that was brought up about parents really having informed consent about what this means, of that when you are learning a second language, it's actually considered a multiple intelligence, one of the multiple intelligences. And so some children are going to get that faster than others. And although parents may really want their children to become bilingual, you're somewhat taking a risk that they won't have, that same ability. And are you willing to risk that their test scores are going to be lower for several years? And as a community, are we willing to also accept that those test scores are going to be low, which sometimes affects property values? And so there's this huge kind of bigger picture to that too. I mean, where it would bring in people that would want to be a part of the program, it would also scare away other people who want to be in a district that has strong test scores. So we're trying to balance, that. So we have, I think, more questions before we take action, and I'm sorry, but I think maybe we want more detail about the 3 recommendations that you have brought forward. We really appreciate you narrowing those down. I personally, just in my kind of thought, would like a K and 1, and I also want to look at having it at both schools. So I would support that third option, but that's just me.
Yeah, just to add on to that, it is great after our 10-hour budget session that we decided that the budget side of it isn't really a huge issue because we can use restricted funds, so it doesn't impact our general fund, which is our big problem right now. So for me, it's really the unanswered questions still, those unintended consequences that we really need to think through, which include the creation of combination classes. How many of those are going to be created strictly because of this? Those are going to be students that aren't in this program. So I'm curious about that. I need a little more information on that.
Like my fellow board members, I have questions. I also want to see this program launched. I don't want to lose momentum. I know this is not popular, but I would even support starting with 1K class just to get it going. But I want to see this program launched.
So do you have enough direction?
Indeed. Thank you for the opportunity, and we will do our best to put this together for you. Were you thinking about the next regular board meeting?
I think the sooner we can get the information, I think we need to take action pretty soon.
Right.
So I agree with that.
The application is due in
April 15th is when
there's break in between.
So we have a board.
How are we going to make this?
I would be willing and think we should consider a special board meeting. I do think time is of the essence if we're going to implement, but I feel like I need to get my questions answered, and I need to be able to have a clear conscience about it, I guess.
Yes.
And is it possible, I don't know if it's possible to hear, no, to hear from teachers, is that possible? I know we've heard a lot from parents.
Of course, I would encourage the teachers that have an interest one way or the other to communicate. So that's always an option. I'll contact the principals and make sure that they know that that's permissible.
And what is the timeline for having this translated into Spanish for parents? Yeah.
Did you want me to answer that
If
question?
you can, that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Am I on? Okay. The plan is in the process of being translated. You have your district translator in the room who translates just about everything in this district.
And she's quite good at it.
She's quite good. So she's in the middle of doing that document right now.
Okay.
However, the document has not been approved yet. So she is awaiting the final draft and your approval. She can do it as it stands, but we will be making changes according to your direction.
Okay, I understand that. But I guess I will just say that the concern that I heard here tonight is that that plan is still available to English-speaking parents
Correct.
right now, but not to Spanish-speaking.
Right, except for in the interest meetings that are run in both languages, and they go through the details of the plan in both languages. And it's discussed at every ELAC meeting in Spanish as well.
Okay.
I think she's got it on the Spanish language radio and in the Spanish newspaper as well.
Okay.
So you feel like the Spanish community is fully aware?
I am confident that they are fully aware. Yes.
At all schools?
Well, her radio station and newspaper article reached the entire
I
community.
understand that.
Yeah. And I believe it's
They're
a discussion
listening.
at all of the groups as an option.
Okay.
All of the principals sent the teleparent and the parent square regarding the information nights to all parents in the district, regardless of school, even to the middle school and high school parents.
Okay.
So it went out to all district parents
Jamie,
in English and Spanish.
Can I ask, were the information nights actually held at the home schools or only at Catalina?
Only at Catalino. The presenters are all Catalino teachers. Those are the teachers that are on the writing team.
I would like, it just as some direction, to hold a second information night at Aliso and maybe one at Summerlin too.
Okay, we have 4 nights, so we can add a 5th and a 6th.
Yeah, but at their home school.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that'd be good. All right.
And there was a question, and the deadline for the invitation to apply is April the 15th.
So it's coming up fast.
Next day.
Yeah.
Okay, so when we look at calendar, we'll schedule a special board meeting, and then we'll make a decision.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for staying. All right, we're going to move on to CUSD Food Services Review Report. She's texting me as we're sitting here.
Yeah, well, you're fine right there.
Cindy, do you want the mouse
I think so.
Okay, here you go.
Yeah, why not?
All right.
Okay. So this presentation outlines some findings and recommendations, and then some of our responses and proposed actions related to a review of our food service operation that was done in April of 2015. So the purpose of the study was to review our operations and our fiscal practices and make recommendations for reducing our operating deficit, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. And of course, in the report, there were detailed recommendations, which I will also be discussing in a lot of detail, but they focus on how to increase revenues and reduce labor costs. So it's like any other business. You know, you need to increase revenues and decrease your operating costs. So first of all, from a historical perspective, our food service operation has generated some level of operating deficits for at least 14 years. I went back to the data that I had readily available, and the deficits were smaller in the earlier years for a lot of different reasons, but at the end of 2014-15, the deficit had increased to a little over 200,000, which is too large for us to sustain going forward. So we wanted to take a close look at that. When I came here in 2003, our food service operation looked quite a bit different. All of our food was pre-made, it was packaged, it was warmed and served by our cafeteria staff. Each cafeteria operated independently. There was a food service, we now call them team leaders, but at the time they were cafeteria managers. They oversaw and pretty much independently ran each of their kitchens. They did most of their purchasing, and of course they were the front line supervisors of their staff. We did have a food service supervisor, but that function was more of a fiscal function. That person filed the claims to the state for reimbursement and paid bills and processed lunch applications. So it wasn't a typical oversight like you might expect to see in other school districts. Since 2003, we've made a lot of changes, and I feel like it's important to understand that we've made a lot of progress, because we tend to focus on what we can do better, which is really, really important. But I want to acknowledge all of the things that our staff have done over the years to make our operation better. And it started with adding salad bars to each of our schools. That was a huge step forward, particularly at our elementary schools, which didn't have them. At the high school, we changed from basically a speed line where we had pre-cooked packaged hamburgers and a few other miscellaneous things, to something that looked more like a food court model, which is more similar to what students would get if they went out to eat. And it really improved our participation. Before we started that, we had participation of about 20% at our high school, and now it's maybe 48%. And that's pretty good for a high school. It's hard to get high school students to eat in the cafeteria. We also eliminated off-campus lunches, and that was even at the middle school, where students that were rewarded for grades were allowed to go off campus some days of the week and go out to lunch. So that practice ended in 2005, 2006. And then at the high school, it was ended a couple years later, where now students are required to stay on campus except for Fridays, and then it's only seniors who are basically have good attendance and good behavior. And that makes a huge difference too, because everyone was rushing off campus to go get their lunches, and it's a half-hour lunch. So now they can have their lunch on campus, and that also increased participation. For a number of years, we had a really strong collaboration with the Orfila Foundation. They provided a lot of training in from scratch cooking for our food service staff, and they also provided funding for the salad bars and kitchen equipment and a lot of other things. So they have been a real support to us over the years as we've worked to improve our operations. And then in 2008, we hired a new supervisor with the idea of that position providing more central oversight to each of the cafeterias to centralize menu planning, purchasing, and provide culinary support, cooking support to our cafeterias. So we also have a half-time accounting technician whose job is to help pay bills and process the applications. So those are some of the steps that have been taken over the years and were in place at the time when the review was done. So the focus of the review, again, was to reduce labor costs, and I'll talk about that in a little bit in a little more detail. Reduce food costs for by the way of reducing waste and also improving procurement practices, increasing revenues by increasing participation in our students, and also the report proposed having additional a la carte sales. Also a focus in the report is to improve oversight of the food service supervisor, and then it also had there was also a discussion of the facilities in our district. So first of all, reducing labor costs. In the report, the consultant indicated that in looking at our data that our labor costs were unusually high as a percentage of sales, and they are to this day. They're over 60% if you look at all of our sites together. And her recommendation was to reduce staffing hours significantly. And the way that would be achieved would be to have fewer staff and have more convenience food. So going back to the packaged and warm food that we had when I came here in 2003. So, and I believe this strongly, and I know our superintendent does too, that we can't reduce our staff time to the level that's proposed in the report and continue to increase and improve our cooking from scratch. It's just not possible. It's not humanly possible. We have reduced hours a little bit through attrition, and you can see up there about 4.5 hours at a couple of sites. The next recommendation is to provide more training for staff, and I strongly believe that this is important. All of the food service staff participated in October when all of the certificated and some of the classified staff had a non-school day in service. The cafeteria staff also had training all day, and they were trained in offer versus serve, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit because that's a key component in how we can reduce our food costs. So they got a lot of training on that. There are additional trainings that are offered by the Department of Education for food service directors on procurement practices, and we can get training on using our software for menu planning, and so we want to focus on those things. And then finally, our food service supervisor is now required to visit sites weekly for several hours at each site so that the supervisor can provide more support and training to staff so they can get a visual on how everyone's working in the kitchen, whether they can work more efficiently and make suggestions that way. So more on-the-job training. Some more recommendations for reducing labor costs. Change the timing of breakfast or eliminate it entirely. So in reviewing our participation, breakfast participation is lower than lunch. And at some of our school sites, it's very low because breakfast can only be served before school, and students don't arrive in enough time before school to get a breakfast. And this has been true at Catalino, although this year the staff is working on increasing breakfast participation. So each school has a different story when it comes to breakfast and the timing of it. So we do it sometimes before school at Catalino. We do it at what I would call a nutrition break or a mid-morning break at Aliso, and also at the middle school and the high school, because those seem to work. It doesn't seem to work at Catalino right now. So we try to adjust it, but we believe that we should be serving breakfast everywhere as best we can and try to focus on increasing participation. Another recommendation was to reduce the number of student helpers at the secondary school. So we have students working at both the middle school and at the high school. They may help with serving, they may help with cashiering, and we've made some reductions there, but it's really great having the students in there because they're coming just to help at lunch where you need extra hands. And I think it's a good experience for them to be able to work at a job and make a little money, because we do pay them to work in the cafeterias. We are looking next year at reducing student workers a little more at the high school. If we can reconfigure the service area, we won't need as many cashiers. And then also, we may be able to get more student volunteers, either through community hours or through our culinary arts program. So we're looking at different ways to have students work in the cafeterias, but maybe reduce the costs that we're incurring in that area. Food costs. The first recommendation is to go out to bid for food purchases. And I think this is an excellent recommendation and something we're going to work on this year. In the past, purchasing has been done in a more informal basis, looking at price lists. And the cafeteria or the team leaders will often check around for pricing and do some of their own purchasing. It's important for us to centralize our purchasing and be able to go out for bid. So we're working with Santa Barbara Unified School District. They've been gracious enough to let us come and work with them on doing some type of joint bid, or we can piggyback on their bid. And in connection with that, the next recommendation, sites should only order food from approved sources. So once we go through the bidding process, we'll be telling sites these are the food products you'll be buying, and these are the vendors you'll be buying your products from. And hopefully that's going to save some money as well. The next recommendation about focusing on food waste, yes, we definitely work on that. One of the suggestions was to implement offer versus serve, and so we've done that for this year at Catalino and at Liso. And what that means is, in the past, we served. Students would come through the line, they'd be handed a tray of food, it would have everything they were required to take on it, and lots of times, of course, students didn't want the particular item that was being put on the tray, and it just got thrown out. So offering means that students can go through a salad bar first, pick out their fruits or vegetables or both, then go through the line and get their main entree, and they have some more choices, and so there is less waste in doing that. So I think that was a useful recommendation. Also, Catalino and Aliso have now implemented recess before lunch. Before, students came in for lunch and they just were in a big hurry to eat and get out and play. This way, they've played first, they come in, they're hungry, they're thirsty, they drink their milk. and then they're calmer and ready to go back to class. So that has been a successful implementation. And then the final response we have is that our staff have been trained and reminded about portion sizes, because the National School Lunch Program has very specific serving sizes for each type of item that you're serving and what age groups. And if you're not careful, people serve in excess of what the serving size is, and so then again food can be wasted. The next recommendation, salad bars utilized for our fruits and vegetables instead of putting the fruits and vegetables on the serving line. And this has been implemented at Aliso and Canalino. The high school, we're looking at trying to do something with that next year. It means moving the salad bar and making that something that all students go through. And at the middle school, because of the small size of the kitchen and the serving area, it's impossible really to have a salad bar available to all students currently. The next recommendation, site staff should adhere to the approved menus and recipes. And so we're really going to be working with the team leaders, and everyone's going to be working together on planning the menus for next year, and hopefully we'll have buy-in so that everybody's working off the same menus and the same products. Increased revenues. So one of the things that I've noticed over the years is that we have had declining enrollment in our schools. I mean, it's a fact that we've struggled with. We still have 4 kitchens, but they're serving fewer students than we served back in 2003 when I came here. So the economy of scale is a little challenging. But it's important that we try to increase student participation within the student numbers that we have, and also focus on other ways of increasing revenues. So one of the recommendations was to increase the prices for a la carte items. And we have a few at the middle school, and we have a few at the high school. And it's pretty much limited to water and flavored water and a couple of other miscellaneous things. And we're going to study that and look at the pricing of it. But there's also a concern that if we offer a lot of a la carte items, that it's going to take away from our full meal sales and our meal reimbursements. So that's something that needs to be carefully considered. And I don't think we want to go back to a situation where we're selling a lot of, for lack of a better term, junk food in our a la carte sales. Next recommendation was to conduct surveys to determine what menu items would improve participation, and we think this is a great idea. We're going to survey parents before the end of the school year, and also students, and solicit input from, in fact, we've already received a lot of input from the Student Wellness Committee and from the administrators. So there's a lot of interest in what we're doing, and a lot of ideas on changing up our offerings and how to improve our food services. So that I'm really appreciative of all the suggestions, and we're trying to work through those. Another recommendation was to offer more variety in our menus by increasing the number of weeks in our cycle. So we have a 5-week cycle right now, and that's not an unusual cycle, but we'll probably look at whether we can shake things up a little bit more, because people do get in a rut and they get tired of having the same things in their cafeterias. Another recommendation was to add a simple additional entree choice at the elementary schools, and the suggestion was a peanut butter sandwich. And I don't know if that would increase participation or not, but we're going to look at whether offering anything additionally would have more students eat in our cafeterias. Then the next focus of the recommendations was to improve oversight by our food services supervisor. And I think that this is a critical piece to our operation. When we hired a new food services supervisor in 2008, the idea was that we were going to consolidate more so that we could provide more support for each of the cafeterias. And so this is going to be a focus going forward. The interim supervisor and I meet currently to discuss operations in the budget, and on Monday we had a meeting with the team leaders and showed them projections for the year. They're very interested in how they're doing. They ask me all the time, how am I doing? How am I doing? So we're providing them with more data so that they get feedback about that. They also get feedback on the meal data, so that each site we have spreadsheets that show the data for, I think it's about 5 years now, month by month. So you can see how you did compared to the month before, how you did to the year before that. And so I think that's useful too in terms of seeing how many meals are being sold on average, and both at lunch and at breakfast. And then finally, the supervisor has access to fiscal reports in our financial system. So we're trying to provide more financial data for the operations. And again, the data is all by site, so everybody can tell how they're doing. The next recommendation is that the food service supervisor should visit sites regularly and assist staff with efficiency, and also provide insight into staffing levels. So I'm very interested in staffing the cafeterias correctly. If we want our staff to do more cooking from scratch, do they have enough time to do that? And yet the staffing is very expensive, so it needs to be carefully considered at each site. So the plan is to have the food service supervisor visit each site weekly. I think I already mentioned this. And, quality time with staff, not just dropping in and saying, hi, how's it going? Do you need anything? But actually being able to go in and work with people on a regular basis, at least weekly. There were a number of recommendations about our facilities. One is to have the supervisor assess our equipment needs and determine priorities. And the good news is that we applied for and received a grant from the Department of Education for large equipment purchases for each of our kitchens. There's some refrigerators and some ranges, and the cost of that grant is almost $62,000. So that's really wonderful. We were able to buy some very expensive equipment. The layouts of the kitchens are all being evaluated. It was an item in our facility master plan, and of course some of the kitchens will receive extensive work as funded by Measure U. And we'll also continue to pursue grant opportunities for especially equipment. It seems like there are a number of different grants out there for getting kitchen equipment. And then this last recommendation, and this is in the report, so I'm responding to it. District should consider low participation and overstaffing issues before remodeling the middle school kitchen. My view about it is that the kitchen, because it's small and there's not a proper large enough serving area there, and potentially not an indoor eating area for our space, partly contributes to the fact that we have lower participation at our middle school because students can't get their food fast enough. So renovation for that kitchen and serving area is also included in the facility master plan and funded by Measure U. So this is kind of small, but this is a current budget. And this is as of second interim, so it was in the second interim report. And you can see that the operating deficit is projected at about $130,000. So that's better from last year, which was a little over 200,000. So I'm hoping that's going to be about where we land. And then down here you can see food and supplies as a percentage of sales is about 48%. So that's pretty close to the benchmark that we should be using, which is about 45%. Labor as a percentage of sales is 61%. That's still higher, but we don't have a lot of opportunities for reducing staff. And a lot of it is just, staff costs are expensive, all of the salaries and the health insurance and benefits. So that's higher than we would like, but we're going to continue to evaluate staffing. So the goals are to add more scratch cooking to the menus. So this is in spite of the recommendations in the report. I didn't feel like that reflected where we wanted to go. Our goal is also at the same time to reduce our operating deficit. So there's a lot of challenges in that to improve our menus, reduce our operating costs, and I view it as something where we want to grow. This is something where we need to move forward. We need to focus on continuous improvements and not just right now, but next year, the year after, and the year after. Evaluating all of our practices, looking to see what other districts are doing. I really value the opportunity to collaborate with Santa Barbara Unified because their food service director is really amazing and always happy to help us. So it's nice to get ideas from them especially. So we're going to be working on this for a while. Details of the plan. First of all, we already have a working group of our site team leaders, the interim food service manager, supervisor myself, Darlene, principals. So we're already working on this as a group. We've been gathering input from stakeholders, and as I mentioned previously, we'll be doing a survey of students and parents about our menu items. Over the spring and this next summer, we're going to focus on menu development with the idea of reducing costs, increasing scratch cooking, and hopefully choosing things that students like so that we can increase our participation. We're going to focus on our procurement practices in collaborating with Santa Barbara Unified. I want to evaluate our paper products. We've had a lot of requests for using more environmentally friendly products, and so we're going to be looking at that. Also, composting. This is being done. It's being done at our elementary schools. It's been done at the high school and at the middle school. But there's some difficulties at the middle school and the high school that we need to kind of work out to go back to using it. So that's a focus for next year. We want to have some staff training. And so over the summer, the staff are going to be receiving additional training in use of our software for menu planning, production sheets, and ongoing training on cooking and efficiency, and then focusing on our marketing activities, which would be all kinds of hopefully creative things at each of our schools where we have contests, taste testing, all kinds of theme days. There's a lot of things out there that we could do that would make cafeterias more fun to be in. And so this is the timeline so far. And it doesn't have everything on it. This is just what we're going to be working on between now and next fall. So the first item up here under menu development, we have survey parents that we plan to complete by the end of May, so we can use that input, not just parents, students too. so we can finish that and work on menus for next year. We want to revamp the breakfast menu. Right now, we're going to be substituting a different whole grain muffin for what everybody seems to be calling muffin tops. And this is just a short-term substitution. I really want to say that because our staff are saying in meeting with them on Monday, we really want to make changes, but we just can't do it as fast as you want us to, that we really want to have this summer to plan our menu. So this muffin substitute is simply to make a slight improvement for the rest of this year. And then in the meantime, the cafeterias have received some ideas from our registered dietitian, and they're going to test out some new things with the students, and those will be options to put on the menu for next year. And we need to have a final menu for next year by about the middle of July so that the dietitian can do all of the detailed nutrition analysis that is required by the National School Lunch Program and the Department of Education. So that's the breakfast. We're pretty much doing the same thing for the lunch menu, trying out new stuff, coming up with a final menu by the middle of July. I've already talked to you about procurement. So I'm working on setting up a meeting in Santa Barbara in the next 2 weeks to start that process of going through the bidding. I have not done a food bid before, so this is going to be really interesting. So I expect to learn a lot, and we'll hopefully have competitive pricing for next year and a final product list by the end of July. Evaluating paper products, I already talked to you about that. So one of the very special requests from the elementary schools is to replace the sporks with forks. I'll tell you what, we'll save a box for you, okay? So we're going to replace those. As soon as we run out, we're going to be getting forks and spoons. Yeah, chopsticks would be fun. So that'll be, we anticipate running out of those sometime in April. But we're going to put some aside for you, okay? I promise. And then begin evaluating all the paper products. And so that'll be part of our bid as well. So we're going to be buying our paper products on a competitive bid and hopefully save some money. Hopefully find something that's more environmentally friendly, although everybody's telling me that the compostable plates and all the products are really expensive. So that may be a hard choice. But I think we can do better than we are. Staff training, we've already scheduled what we're calling refresher training on our NutriKids software for our team leaders. That training will be done by the registered dietitian who works with them, and we're just going to make sure everybody's really clear on how to use the software at their sites. There's also training on procurement practices that's offered to the food service directors. The Department of Ed offers it. It's free. It lasts 2 days, and so I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that. Those courses are really popular and fill up quickly, so we're going to have to plan ahead. And then there's ongoing training for all the food services staff and food safety, cooking techniques. So this will be an ongoing process to provide training for staff. And, they're going to be asking for training. They're really interested in getting more training, so I think that'll be a really good experience. And then finally, marketing activities. I think that's going to be a focus for next year, not so much between now and the opening of school, but hopefully over the next school year, there will be some of that going on as well. And I think that's it. So does anyone have any questions?
I just had a quick question on the